Evening, everybody. I'm trying to get this new stream off the ground. Got a couple of changes going on, and I want to start off while everybody's getting in here. Looks like there's a good group of you already, so hope you're all doing good. Got a lot of complaints lately about the quality of these streams. I think most of that is from non-subscribers, people who find the videos and don't really know what's going on. But just so everybody's aware, or for any of you new watchers, I live here. And it's difficult to get good internet. So mine is really, really slow. I live way out in the mountains in Colorado, up about 9,500 feet. And there just isn't a whole lot of bandwidth. So when I try to do these lives, I try to compress everything. I got a new camera that does some compression for it. So hopefully that will ease some of the problems as well. That's why the videos that I upload look a lot better than these streams. So I'm continuing to work on that. There's rumor that I may be able to get a new service provider, and that will hopefully help things as well. So that said, that's where we're at. I got a little bit of new lighting going, so we're trying some new things. Hopefully this looks all right, and we'll keep going. So without further ado, return your tray tables to their unlocked and down position so that you can put your beer on them. This is mine for tonight. It is from AleSmith and Maui. It's a collaboration. It's called Hi Ho Aloha. So try that out. Now the lights are really messing with me. If you get a chance, great beer. Today is really about the start of the countdown. I've been teasing it on the podcast lately. If you guys have been missing that, check it out. I've been teasing this countdown because the days are getting shorter. The 23rd, they start to show up for rookies and quarterbacks. So what is that? 15 days from today. That's a big deal. We're almost back to actually being able to talk about something that we saw rather than what we think. There's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of things that have to go on. So it comes down to the overarching situation is this is the opening of the window. And I know somebody had a great comment that the door is wide open, and then that's fair. But this is the opening of the window for Patrick Mahomes on his rookie contract before he has to get the blockbuster deal that is coming. This is the opening of the window right now. Can you get the defense good enough to win a Super Bowl now before you have to rebuild things, before you have to take into account how much of the cap has to go to Mahomes and how much you have left for skill positions, for defenders, for pass rushers, etc. It's going to be interesting, but that's why this is so key right now. And that's why it's really about Mahomes. And I for one, and really we should probably talk about it this way. How impressed are you with how much he's been doing this offseason? Now, I know he's been blowing up in terms of popularity, media endorsements, things in the public, but he's been working hard too. He's spoken quite a bit about trying to not gain weight, but change his body type, add muscle, pull off some of the baby fat. And I think that's good for him. I think that gives him a little bit more staying power when teams do get home. Von Miller's going to get his eventually. You know what I mean? So I think it's really interesting to see how he's taking it to the next level, not happy with being an MVP, not happy with being, probably, you could argue Rodgers and Stafford, but he's got the biggest gun in the league by my estimation. And I really do look forward to him someday testing that against some of the other guys. The quarterback skills competition, I think, will be good in a few years. I think this is the thing. Doing all that is, again, preparation for getting to that Super Bowl, and all the things that he's doing is, again, all along those lines. So I think we have to focus on it being the beginning of the window, the door, whatever y'all want to say. You have to look at it that way because right now it's the cheapest you're going to have him. And the downfall for other organizations has been when they have to pay their quarterback and who has to not get paid because of it. And yes, there's a new CBA coming. That's going to change things. We don't know how much. We don't know how much he's going to hit on the market. My podcast partner, and if you haven't listened to it, check it out, because for everything that I think, there's a counterpoint, and Chris is usually it, but Chris thinks it's going to be a $200 million contract. That just blows me away. It's a big number, so I struggle with that a little bit. But, this is going to be the window to get it done before then. And yeah, they started talking already. That's a positive sign between the NFLPA and the NFL themselves. Starting to talk about it now is helpful, but it's going to change the scope of this team when it happens. So right now is the time to go. It's got to be all your cards in. If you guys play poker, it's an all-in moment. Right now, this season, everything. So that's what it comes down to. And that's why I want to talk about, I think Mahomes is doing everything he can do. The team's trying to do as much as they can do. And I think there's a couple of little things that they can still do. But now it comes down to those individual players. And I think that's why, even though it's been a hard offseason with the departure of Eric Berry and Justin Houston, and so much of the old school Chiefs, I think you have to buy into they need those new guys to step up, take the reins, and put the hammer down. And that includes Frank Clark and Tyrann Mathieu. And it's got to include Chris Jones, who will be in camp. Don't worry about a prolonged holdout. He really can't go past August 6th no matter what. That hurts him more than the team if he does. So that's where it lies. Starting to see questions. I'll answer them in a minute. I just want to touch one, Jason Ducey. I'm not a huge fantasy guy. We can talk about that a little bit, but I prefer to keep it to actual football. My brand of fantasy is a little bit different, and Chris will tell you I'm crazy, but in all my leagues that I run, there are two of them. It used to be three. We play defensive players for tackles and sacks and picks, etc. So I enjoy that. Anyway, so really, you got to frame everything else with the roster and the way that it's gone and the way that they're trying to deal with the Tyreek Hill situation, the way that they're trying to deal with the draft choices, etc., is in building not necessarily for the long term, but for this shorter window before they have to pay Pat Mahomes. That's going to be really, really important. So that's where it's at. Looks like we're up to speed. We got a good crowd. So I'll start taking your questions. Again, for those of you that are new, you are free to use Super Chat if you like. Super Chat's the $ at the bottom of the chat window. That gives a donation to the channel that comes to me that I use for lighting and software and other things. And if you want to contribute to the channel, I personally appreciate it. But if you do, make sure you ask a question because you should get something for that donation. And it shows a little bit different to my screen, so I can always pick out the questions on the donations. So please do that if you do choose to support me. If you want to support the channel some other way, you can always get gear. It'll be in the cards. It'll be in the show notes. It's Teespring. It's the RGR football store. There's hats and shirts and whatever. And so you can even get not this coffee mug, but the RGR coffee mug. So that said, I'm going to start here after Jason, basically, since he got it started off. We'll go through. And again, if you're new, hit a couple of question marks at the beginning of your question because it helps me pick them out of the chat. So first and foremost, Nate Combs talking about the CBA and maybe a shutdown. That's true. Do you think they will go 18 games like I've been seeing? I don't think they will. I think that's a hard stop for the NFLPA. The only way I could see that doing is if the NFLPA may agree to an 18-game schedule if it includes one extra bye week, so you have 2 byes a year, and they reduce the number of preseason games. Because for the NFLPA, and you're talking about hits and collisions on your players, that's what you have to narrow it down to in trying to protect them and limit the number of hits in a given season, in a 6-month period. So that's really important. That's about the only way I could see it happening, though. Metal Rocker, what's up, buddy? Who, in your opinion, is the best quarterback for the Chiefs in the early 2000s? The dog days, huh? I mean, I can't remember when Trent got there. That was kind of a weird time for me personally, leaving Kansas City in 2000, 9/11 and everything that happened with that. But Trent Green is a very, very good quarterback. Performed well for the Chiefs, and I think you have to go with him. That'd be my personal take anyway. That was a good one. Mo Kennel, I hear Tyreek may not get suspended. What do you know? I don't know anything new. I have a couple of contacts. They are mostly media who have actual contacts within the organization. The people that I know in the organization don't tell me that kind of stuff. It's not that tight of a relationship. So it is a possibility. And I've heard that more and more. I think a key part of that is that Tyreek Hill, when he spoke to the investigators, and we heard from Therese Paylor, that it was like an 8-hour interview. I think one fact that kind of went under the radar is that it was 2 female investigators from the NFL that he spoke with for that long and took that time to give all that detail to. And I think honestly, if he was honest and they could discern that he was honest and kind of explain that, I think that may go a farther way towards explaining the situation in a way that the NFL can look at not as drastically, and maybe it does reduce it. I still feel it's somewhere between 2 and 4. I've been leaning towards the 4, but I could be wrong. We'll see what happens. I don't think they can get away with no suspension at all. I think that may be a little bit hopeful, but that's just what I think. Alex Mitchell, putting aside the fact that he's a decent player, which I believe he is there an argument to be made for holding on to Dieter just for chemistry? Folks have been making this argument quite a bit, and I can see their point, but at the end of the day, is your quarterback's happiness about a guy that he practices with just because he's his buddy? I don't know. At the end of the day, the NFL is about performance, bottom line. And if you can't contribute at your position, I don't think that you can bring enough to the team to confirm yourself a roster spot. Now, that said, I do think Dieter has not scratched his potential. I do think he showed a couple of flashes last year. So I do think if it were me doing the decisions right now based on performance so far, and obviously that'll change in training camp at the preseason games, I think Dieter makes this roster. And deservedly. I think he's done a couple of things, and I think that's fair. So that's where I think it stands right now. Good question, though. Gary Holland, what do you think about the tight end? What are we going to do? If I know Andy Reid, he's comfortable. As long as a guy can catch passes and make yards, he's going to let him go. It'd be nice to have a blocker, but I don't think that Andy Reid's going to get hung up on it. At the same time, I don't think Brett Veach is going to sleep on it. And if he can get somebody that is an upgrade, I think he will. So look for a trade. Definitely pay attention on cut down weekend. And we'll see what happens. Super Chief, do you think the Bengals release John Ross? Should we pick him up to have Hill Hardman? I mean, for a couple of bucks, I think John Ross is worth a flyer. But, man, I got to tell you, I have trouble seeing him stay healthy. It's been a rough go from him ever since he left UW. And even then, he was hurt fairly often. So it just stretches to see John Ross being able to make a long-term impact in Kansas City if he were to come here. So, hey, Ray Booth, thanks for your donation. You didn't ask a question, though, dude. Come back and ask a question. You got to get paid for that. So I appreciate it. Mark, what do you think of the second tight end? I like what Yelder brings. We haven't seen him do anything because he practiced a lot last year. I think he'll be in the mix. And I like what I've seen from Lovett this year. If they roll into the postseason, into the season, with Yelder and Lovett as the backups, I think obviously you're looking at pass catching rather than blocking. I think they're going to be all right. Let's see. Can Chris Jones quickly adjust to the 4-3? Sure. Chris Jones is better at penetration than he is taking on double teams. He can do it, but this will be a better defense for Chris Jones in the long run. I don't think it'll take him long to get used to it. Just let him loose. Lola, do you think of a way that Veach has handled the first major extension of Chris Jones? You think you should just pay him what he wants or keep playing hardball? I don't think he's playing hardball. I think Chris Jones is overinflating his value. He's not Aaron Donald. He hasn't proved that. He has the potential to be, but he's only done one season. So I don't have any problem with what Veach is doing. Make him prove it. Make him come back and do it again. And if you have any questions at that point, put the tag on him, make him do it again, and then pay him. Letting a talent like that go, I don't generally approve of. But you got to make sure that you're going to get that after the deal as well. So I'm fine with where he's at. Cody Irwin, thanks for your donation. You asked, how do you think the fans will react to Tyreek Hill returning to the field? Will there be a reaction to determine whether he's on the team next year? No. Fan reaction in the stadium will not deter anything. It will be performance on the field and whether he can keep his nose clean off the field. That is all that will matter. I do think he's going to get booed at first. I think that will die down fairly quickly. As soon as he makes a big play, I think the booing will be over. But I do expect it the first time or two. Good question, Cody. Beyond that, I don't think it's going to have an impact. If he can contribute to the team, performance has a general way of smoothing everything over, both with the fan base and definitely with the coaching staff. Jerry Pratt, thanks for your donation. Again, please come back and ask a question. And there's Ray. Okay, so Ray's question was, after donating, thanks for all the time you put in entertaining me. Yeah, I'm glad it works. On a Monday drive home from work, you always answer my questions. So thanks. Don't have a question today. All right, buddy. Well, next time for sure. Jerry, come back with one too, please. Let's see here. Scott Meza. Can Chris Jones adjust to the 4-3? Yep, he certainly can. Answered that. Kyler Litton. I wonder if you're Chase's brother. If so, hi. Do you think there will be a lag between Tyreek and Mahomes, or Tyreek when Tyreek comes back? I don't think so. You might not see much of a progression just because they haven't been hanging out much. Some of those snaps, it reaffirms. It takes a little bit to get back, but once you're back, I think it'll be just fine. So I don't think it's going to have any long-term effects. Super Chief, do you think Mahomes can throw for 100 yards with the muscles he's gained? I don't know. The muscle is more about having armor physically. More muscle in your arm and even in your shoulder isn't going to make you throw much farther. Maybe a touch, but most of that is rotational mechanics. How the arm rotates is drive from the legs through the back and up through the shoulder girdle. You're not going to improve that drastically without changing your body type. So kinetically, I think it's going to be pretty similar. He might get a little bit bump out of it, but it won't be huge. Jason Austin, have you determined which days you'll be at camp? Fan day is the 27th. Yeah, I am totally booked at work. I do work an actual day job. This is the side hustle here, folks. So I'm working on making this the main gig, but we'll get there. So no, I am going to be in town the last weekend after the first preseason game. That next week, Monday and Tuesday for sure. I'm going to try to get a lot of time watching individual players, seeing how the practices go in terms of 7s and 11s, and we'll go from there. Really trying to get a good read on not only what they're showing now, but what they can do come the regular season. So if any of you can come out that Monday and Tuesday, it'll be calmer. There'll be less people there because, it's a work day and all that kind of thing. So please do. I'll be there. I'll camp out in my normal spot. If anybody saw me last year, you know where I'll be, on the corner, not necessarily by the media tent, but close to it. Let's see. Caster for days. Do you think Hill will bounce back and become an even better player and human? I don't know. I don't know Tyreek personally. I've never met him. He's a very good player. I don't think anything that has happened has deterred how he plays. I think it may hopefully drive him to be better. And I think once this relationship is in the rearview mirror, as much as it can be for a guy who has kids with someone, I think he will be able to continue down a path that isn't as treacherous for him. If he can keep his head on straight, I think she's a distraction from that. I think he will be better for it. So, hey, Dylan Crockman, thank you. I think you donated last week too. I appreciate it very much. Thanks. And your question is, if Andy gets a ring this year, does he retire or does he try to get another? If it wasn't Mahomes, I would think he might consider it. He did have a knee replacement. That's a big deal. I think he's got a hip replacement coming. That though they usually go hand in hand a couple of years apart, to tell you the truth. But he likes working with Mahomes, and Mahomes does things that no other quarterback that Andy's ever had can do. So I feel like even if he wins, yes, that puts him in the Hall instantly. He's a Hall of Famer as it is, but that will seal it. Done deal. But with Mahomes at 24 years old and you've won a Super Bowl, I can see Andy hanging out in 5 years trying to get 2 or 3 more and then put his name up with the Landrys and the Belichicks. I think that's what you could see. I hope so. Great question. And thanks for donating to the channel. I hope you guys are getting something out of it. I hope this looks better than it usually does, and I'm going to continue to make improvements. Arch 29 BL, any chance we keep Bieniemy as an OC rather than a head coach in 2 to 3 years down the road? I like him a lot, and being he has been with Pat from day one. Eric Bieniemy is a great coach. I met Eric a long, long time ago when he was fresh out of college. just starting. And my impression, and I was a teenager at the time, my impression is he's the same dude today. And I really like that. Um, and I do feel he's going to get to call some plays this season. I think that's the natural progression under Andy Reid. Is you learn his system, he starts to trust you with input, and then he starts to trust you with making calls. Once that happens, that's going to legitimize Eric Bieniemy across the league in everyone's eyes. So that's when it starts to get iffy. But again, Eric's done very good learning how to coach quarterbacks for a guy who hasn't actually coached quarterbacks. I think that will put just a little bit of a longer timeline for Eric Bieniemy getting a head coaching job. But the man's super smart. He's super intense. And the NFL likes that. He will be a head coach in this league, especially if they fix the Rooney Rule so more minority coaches get an actual chance. I do believe Eric Bieniemy will leave the Chiefs eventually for a head coaching position. I'm hoping it'll be 3 or 4 years down the line, though. Carlos, how are you? Do you think it's fair that he'll get suspended because of his jealous fiance trying to sabotage his career? I don't know that's what her cause was, but I do feel it was. You got to be smarter than that. Don't threaten people on audio. There are places in this country where you can get charged with a crime for that. It's not going to happen in this case, but you definitely could. You got to understand when people are trying to bait you, and I understand that it's hard because you have a relationship, you have children with this girl. It's tough, but it's going to be what it is. Fair or not, you can't go around doing those kind of things, especially when you're a high profile guy with a history. So I think he's going to be all right in the end. I think he'll remain a Chief. We'll see how that works out. Let's see. Brian Gooch, thanks for your donation. Appreciate it. Brian Gooch, do you work for 3M? If you do, ping me back. Mahomes talks about his footwork and plays left on the field. What worries me that he concentrates on that too much, that during the season he's worried about footwork and it changes his game. I don't think you need to worry about that. I think what he's trying to do, he's such an instinctual player. I think what you're going to see is he's going to work on these things. And just like last season, when he gets really under pressure or it's a pressure situation and he has to break the pocket, he's going to revert to his old ways. Habit, I think, is the bigger thing there. It's going to take a couple of years for him to lock it down, in my opinion. But his ad lib is incredible. It's championship stuff as an ad lib, so I don't think it's anything to worry about. And I think at the end of the day, getting the play done, being instinctual, that will all let it slide. I think he's going to be okay in his performance. If you see him thinking too much, it'll show up as him stalling in the pocket and not leaving when he needs to. Last season, he left some pockets that were perfectly fine and bailed a little bit early. So that is one thing to watch for in terms of a sign of maturity for Mahomes. Thanks for the donation. That's a good question. Jerry Pratt, do you think the defense and offense will be in sync because of all the new players before the first game? That's always a challenge. But the offense and defense don't really sync. They're two halves of a coin. It's about the coaches and the defensive players getting in sync. And that's going to be a challenge, but I think they can get there. It's a tough schedule this season, but definitely down the stretch is more important. So they may stumble a little bit, but Mahomes and the offense should be able to compensate for that. And I don't see it costing them games right away. Could be one or two. Spags has had, kind of a roller coaster. They've lost some big games under him and then had to regroup and get solid again. So you never quite know. But I don't think it's going to have to be a sync issue. Let's see. Kyle K, thanks for your donation. Appreciate it. What's the highest ceiling for Pringle? 5 TDs? Question mark. Right now, I can't tell you because it's real interesting. Somebody's got to take charge while Tyreek is out. And if it's 2 weeks, then it doesn't leave a big window. So can Pringle progress faster than Mecole Hardman? That's the question. I think they both are going to overtake Demarcus Robinson in terms of playmaking ability. And so then what it becomes is who gets those snaps. And if Pringle becomes the guy that right now, if you give Mecole a rookie year and Pringle becomes the guy that is out there as the third receiver with Watkins and Hill, then yeah, he can definitely get 5 touchdowns. You saw Chris Conley get them last year, and he's not near as explosive. Chris is a good possession route runner. He has great leaping ability, but he's not that fast out of cuts. And he isn't somebody that's going to shake somebody loose. So I do feel like his 5 touchdowns are definitely up for grabs, as well as maybe a couple others. Great question. I do think Pringle is coming on, and he's going to be somebody to really, really watch this year. If I could include him in my next top 5 list, which, by the way, the top 5 list will probably come out in a couple of days. If I could include him in the rookie top 5 list to watch, I would probably do that. But he's nearly a rookie. He could have the same effect that it had on Mahomes, and that year off just may do the trick. Parker Wrigley, who will be able to keep / pay after the big Mahomes contract? Well, that's the big question, and it depends on the CBA. It depends on the annual uptick in the salary cap, which is generally between 9 and 12 million a year. That helps quite a bit. And then you have to get into structure. The guaranteed amount's going to be a challenge. You can still get everybody you have right now. You can get Jones done, and you can get Tyreek Hill done. Doing another contract for Travis Kelce gets a little bit tougher. You have Frank, you have Tyrann. If you fall short in 2019, you have to go get a top flight cornerback. That makes it hard. Then you're relying on that cap space that you have to recover. So that's going to be the telling tale. I really don't know, but I think they can get it done. Scott Mazo, will we franchise tag Chris Jones? I do think that is a definite possibility. It just depends whether he and his agent can come down, meet them in the middle, and actually get something done so that he's in there long term, that he can concentrate. I have to hope that that's what he wants. He looks like he's in great shape from what I've seen in his social media and what he's been working out at. But if he's determined to make Aaron Donald money, someone's going to give it to him in another year, especially if he gets the franchise tag. I don't think he'll be here long term. I think the franchise tag would seal it, and he will get paid by someone else. Paul Pierce, who has more to prove, DeMarcus or Ward? That's a tough one. Probably DeMarcus Robinson, because he's had more time to do it, and he hasn't. He's made a couple of plays here and there, but he hasn't become the weapon that he could be. Ward is much younger and has shown spark, but he hasn't gotten there. But he gets more leeway because he just hasn't had as much experience. Red Rocker. If I was in a boat with Raiders fans, a dude fan, and a donkey fan, and you have to Spartan kick one of them out of the boat to keep it from sinking, who am I kicking out? I got to tell you, the wife's a Broncos fan. Believe it or not, there are some decent Bronco fans who actually know football. So I'm going to let that guy slide and assume he's one of them. Raiders fans are crazy. But if they got your back, they got your back. So I'm kicking the dude from San Diego out. That's where I'm going. He's going to be a slacker anyway. Beach bums. Yeah, that's where I'm going. Okay, Rocker, thanks. That was fun. Low Lip, who's better, Myles Garrett or Frank Clark? Frank Clark. How many Super Bowls can Mahomes and Reed win together? Marshall, it's a question of balance. It's not just them. They have to have a decent defense. We saw that last year. They can come close without a defense, but they got to have one. So I'm thinking, depending on the cap and the CBA, I think they could get to 4. I think they have the ability to become a dynasty as well. Next question, Evgeny. Outside of MVP Pat and Kelce, what player injury would have the highest risk of derailing the Chiefs' season? Tyrann Mathieu. They brought Tyrann in to be a leader, and he has to tie that secondary together. Kendall Fuller is a good player. He's not a vocal leader. Bashaud Breeland's a solid player. He's not elite enough to lead a defense. You're going to have a second-year player at one corner, and you're going to have a rookie at free safety. Tyrann Mathieu has to take over and drive that secondary. If he gets hurt and misses time, they're in trouble. Then it becomes scheme. Then it becomes Spagnuolo trying to effect enough change and disguise enough things to protect his players. That's a lot of pressure on a first-year defense. Answered that one. Gary Holland, is Jones worth 2 number 1 picks? No. I don't think anybody is. That's just me. KCK69, how many losses do you think we'll have, and what teams you think can beat us? The Chargers can beat them. The Patriots can beat them. The Packers can beat them. Who else? So that's a potential 4 losses right there. I can live with that. Hope you guys can. Live long enough to get to the playoffs, and you're going to be all right. Okay, we got a few more minutes. My wife is flying out in the morning, so I'm going to spend some time with her. We're going to not go too late tonight, maybe another 5-10 minutes. So I'm going to start breezing through here, you guys. If you believe, is there any correlation between injuries and the lack of practice in the OTA TC? I won't say that. I do believe that there is a correlation of injuries versus not practicing in pads. I think that is something that has to be worked back into the CBA. If I'm the league and the coaches, you got to be able to make contact a little more. Maybe not full on. Maybe there's restrictions in the actual, taking to the ground and that kind of thing. But you have to be able to pop more, in my opinion. Let's see. Case K, would we get a first round buy on the franchise tag? If it's a complicated deal. If you franchise tag, you're keeping the guy unless you take the tag off of him. So that's not really part of the equation for that one. If Damien Williams, I'm sorry, this is Andy Anderson. If Damien Williams has 1,500 yards from scrimmage, is he the best Veach signing / contract? It's probably the best value. He could be. Yeah, there'd be an argument to be made there. I like that one. But a rocker, if you could go back to the days when we had Holly and all of them, bring one of the 3 on the defense back to play in this defense, who would it be? DJ Holly or Dante Hall? Wow, that's a good combination. It'd be DJ. Yeah. But, I'd bring back Neil Smith too, and just me. Scott Meza, will the defense make the top 15? It's going to be close. I think they can, if they can stay healthy and they can get on the same page. I think they have that potential. Let's see who else. Okay, the real Rod. Hey, welcome North Carolina. Glad you guys are here. Which linebacker with value do you think we can afford to trade or release? I think it's put up or shut up time for Reggie. I'm a big Reggie Ragland fan. Fitting into a 4-3 failed the first time, and it might be a stretch for him this time. If he can't, you can trade him to a 3-4 team that will be happy to have him. I think he's healthier now than he was last season, so I think it's going to be I think it's a fit that can happen. So I'm going to be optimistic for him. Okay, Mo Ken, if we don't win the Super Bowl this season, is Andy Reid on the hot seat? Nope, not going to happen. Clark will never put him on the hot seat unless he has back-to-back losing seasons. Let's see. Doug Peter, what the hell is taking the NFL so long for the ruling? I have no idea. Crossing their T's, dotting their I's. I don't know. Carlos Ruiz, how much longer can we keep Bieniemy? I'm hoping 2 years. I think it'll be a little bit slower. Definitely 3 is going to be on the outside, I think. Ombre, how are you, bud? Is Brett Veach the best GM in football? Nope. Is this after all these offseason moons? It reminds me of a young Al Davis. He is specific on what he wants. He is based on athleticism quite a lot of the time, and he's not afraid to go with his gut. And I appreciate that. Is he the best GM in the league? No, that's still Bill Belichick. That's just the way it is. And you can make arguments that Chris Ballard is a strong number 2 now. If you guys haven't paid attention to what the Colts did this offseason, Chris Ballard is doing the job. He comes from the Chiefs. He's got the experience. I think you can take some credit for that as a Chiefs fan. But Chris Ballard is on the right track. Let's see. Is it possible to have 4 backs in the backfield and motion them all out wide? Technically, I think it's illegal to line up any more than 3 behind the quarterback. You can H-back somebody over on the wing, and that's still legal. So, yeah, that'd be interesting idea to try. Okay. Dieter's on this week's episode of The Franchise. Any chance he becomes a solid 3-4 receiver? I think he has that option. I think he can. And I think with the Tyreek Hill suspension, if it does happen the way I think it's going to happen, he might have a chance to actually contribute. And he's got to take advantage of that in order to stick there. That's Andrew Russell 11. That's a good question. Thank you. Let's see. Low lift, if the Chiefs had kept Marcus Peters, would his attitude improve with Mahomes and Spags? I don't think so. Maybe a little bit with Spags, because Spags is going to let him do what he wants to do a little bit more, which is sit back, watch the quarterback, and play a little bit more zone. I think his non-tackling would have gotten people fed up on that coaching staff. And quite frankly, it was never an option. He had burnt every bridge with that staff, and it was pretty much a done deal. So, yeah. Urjo, will we utilize Anthony Sherman more? I hope so. Guy has shown he can do anything he's asked. So, give him the ball. Let's see. Kyler Litton, if Andy does retire, is there a coach that I would want? Me? I love what Frank Reich does, but he's going to be in Indy for a while. Could Spags run a team again? He has before. I don't know if you want that long term, especially with Mahomes as your quarterback. Bieniemy could be a choice. You could go after Doug or Matt and try to bring them back. There are always options, and there's always a carousel. There's a lot of young coaches out there too, so you never know. Scott Meza, will Armani Watts take the second or third safety spot? He will not be second. They will start Juan Thornhill until he's injured or something goes wrong. But I do feel like Armani can work himself into that third spot, especially if Spags wants to play more zone that is coverage-based deep. I think you don't want Dan Sorensen back there. So Armani's my choice. Let's see. And Russell, if Veach called you today and asked you to be the Chiefs' number 2 fullback, yes, I would. I am 46 years old, and I will take a beating for one season as a backup fullback. Sure. I did it in college. I might as well do it now. Let's see. Who's next? CJ Dial. If Patrick Mahomes is out for the season, what do you think of the record would be? Fingers crossed it doesn't happen. No, I don't think it'll happen. But if Mahomes were to get hurt, it puts a damper. It changes your offense. I think they're close to an 800 team. I'm sorry, 500 team, 8-8. They might be able to squeak something else out. The weapons are still there. It's about getting the ball. Litton has a big arm. Henny is a competent backup. They could still get some things done. It'd be a little bit tougher. You'd have to get the ball to your playmakers a lot more and a lot quicker. Let's see. Dwight Raleigh, welcome. Glad you made it. Tony Juggins, do you believe in the Madden curse? It seems like it's a thing. I'm not going to say I believe, but I'm definitely crossing my fingers it doesn't happen this year. Deldrick Smith, do you think we keep 8 receivers and 3 tight ends? No. There'll be 6 receivers, maybe 3 tight ends on the roster. I can't even see them keeping a 7th wide receiver. They need too much help in the defensive backfield. I think that's going to eat up a couple extra spaces. Let's see. Who do you think the depth CBs will be? I think right now, from what I've seen, you have your starting 3, and then I think the Chiefs like Reeser a lot more than I do, but they like him. And then I think it's going to be Fenton and Fields. I think they have the most upside for guys that have to play special teams and can grow into. I don't know if Tremont Smith has it to stay on this roster. Let's see. Answered that one. Do you have faith in Andy Reid's play calling when it's crunch time? Steven Concepcion. You know, it's a tough one. I do have faith in his play calling. I think he gets distracted or lulled into a sense of security, which I don't appreciate. I want to see him pound the ball when he can pound the ball. Use your linemen. You can run more. My bigger concern is that he becomes more concerned about the clock. I don't think it's that he's absent-minded. I think that he's just not as concerned about it because he knows he can, either ground the ball or throw an incomplete, and he's going to be there. So that's how I feel about it. Let's see. Oh, answered that one too, Steven. Keith Ford, do you think that the Chiefs will be better with clock management? I hope. I felt like Eric Bieniemy will have a bigger voice, and I hope that is something that will help with the clock management. Urjo, I talked about the backup tight ends earlier in the question and answer. Brian Gooch, again, thanks, dude. Ward is really good at man, struggles in zone. Spags calls a lot of zone. Should we be worried about a top flight CB? Yes. If there's a way to wrangle Pat Peterson away, do it. I still feel that that's an issue. And I will say, playing zone is a lot more active in terms of backpedal and arriving at your spot. Spags is going to play match zone. So when you recognize a route passing through your zone, or you recognize the receiver at his stem when he's looking to make a move, if they can teach Charvarius Ward that, it's going to protect him in zone. So he does have a lot of potential. I'm just looking at it as this is a Super Bowl year that they have to make that push. So I would still like to see them bring someone in that's better. But hey, it is what it is. Good questions, and thanks for the help tonight. How many games do you think they'll win, and who do you think they will lose? I answered that earlier. There are 4 potential games that I could see them losing. There's always somebody that sneaks up on them. I think they're anywhere from an 11 to a 14-win team. Nobody goes undefeated. I'm not even going to get close to calling for that. Arch29BL, thanks for your donation. Appreciate it. Well, I'm glad that you like everything. My Twitter's a little rough because I'm a terrible speller. That's why I talk into a microphone. So I appreciate your patience there. You want B. Eric Enemy to become the head coach after Andy Reid. And like I said, I think that's a good idea. I think the Chiefs as an organization like continuity, and I think for a young player like Pat Mahomes, for younger players like Mecole Hardman, who's going to be a feature in this, like Darrell Williams, who I expect to become a starter eventually. I think those guys will perform better with Eric Bieniemy if Andy Reid, wins a Super Bowl and decides to hang it up. You never know. Okay. Chris Casey, I'm drinking this collab from Maui and AleSmith. It's called Hi Ho Aloha. Will Phillip Rivers' arm fly off throwing a 20-yard out this year? No, I'm pretty sure it's going to stay attached. Jared Panzer, hardest game this coming season, Patriots or Packers? I don't know. It's a toss-up. I feel like the Patriots defense has taken a step back with some of their losses. They're making a couple of gambles on some younger guys. I feel like Aaron Rodgers may be on the comeback trail if they can put their defense together. I think those are going to be 2 big tests. And I think it's really going to show you Mahomes versus the elite quarterbacks. Arch29, again, thank you. I appreciate that. David Wilkerson, who is the first 3 picks in fantasy picks that I would choose? Like from a fresh draft, nobody. In my leagues, quarterbacks still score the most, so Mahomes would be the first pick. I like Chubb, the running back from the Browns. I think he's going to have an even better year. I don't care about Hunt being on that team. He's going to miss at least 8 games. I don't think you sub out Chubb. I think especially Kitchens is going to want to run with his starters. So I'd grab Chubb. And at wideout, I don't know. Wideouts are a dime a dozen in fantasy for me. So I don't know who I'd. If Tyreek's around, sure, why not? Good question, David. I don't get many fantasy questions very often. The Artist Chief, folks, I'm going to take a second here because Corey asked a question. And if you watch me, I'm not real fan-like, right? I try to analyze. That's my job. I analyze for a living. I analyze football for a living. Corey's a great follow. He's got a YouTube channel. He's a great follow on Twitter. Big Chief Sean, another guy with a YouTube channel and a great Twitter. Follow those guys. You guys pretty much all know Brit Chief, I'm sure, but Brad's great too. There's 3 other YouTubers that you should be following. If you like what I'm doing, you'll dig what they're doing. We all do things a little bit differently. I'm kind of, boring, but it is what it is. So check those guys out. Corey asked a question, and I'm glad you did. How will Darwin Thompson perform in training camp, and will he make a number 1 or number 2 at RB? I don't think that he will. I think he's going to show you some good spark in the preseason against some poor defenses. But at the end of the day, I don't know how effective he's going to be at pass block, and that's going to be the key to getting on the field. So I think a redshirt year is in his future. I can see them either trying to get him on the practice squad, or if they really feel they can't, holding on to him, and he's going to have a quiet year. The fact that they feel Hyde is healthy enough to let James Williams go, who is an elite pass catcher out of the backfield, that tells me that they're going to put faith in Carlos Hyde. And Darrell Williams is a great runner. He can catch the ball. They have 3 backs that could start for a lot of teams. So Darwin Thompson's got an uphill battle to try and take snaps from any of those guys. So don't be surprised. Don't be depressed if he doesn't make a big impact as a rookie. I think he does have a future, and we'll see how he can adapt to the pro game. And folks, again, go make sure follow Corey at Artist Chief, Big Chief Sean, as well as Brad over at Brit Chief. Everybody's got Chief in their name but me. Okay. Um, okay. If you had a choice on any trade at CB, who would it be, and what are you giving up for them? There's very few that are worth a trade of any kind of huge value. Pat Peterson is one of them. I really like the kid that played with Peters up in UW, Kevin King for the Packers. I'd give up a draft pick for him too. Peterson, if you have to give up a 1, I guess I could live with it, but I'd rather give up a 2 and a 3. I think you might be able to pull that off. Kevin King, you can probably get cheaper, but he's a young guy that I'd like to see in a Chiefs uniform. I like the way that he plays. Let's see. Rock 3036. If the Chiefs win the Super Bowl and Andy retires, who would you like to see become the head coach? There's a number of guys around the league that I like. I think the best fit would probably be Bieniemy for continuity's sake. But I could see Matt or Doug trying to come back, especially if they have any kind of setback. I like what Matt Nagy does. I don't know that I'd trust Trubisky to be his bell cow. If Trubisky flops, he could be in trouble. You could see him lose a job and then be available. You never know. Let's see. Low lip. Will this season's Mahomes versus Rodgers map top last season's Rams game? I think it will, because I think Goff is a product of McVay more than himself. That sounds bad, and I don't mean to badmouth Goff. I just think that those two together are as nearly as potent as Mahomes and Reed are together. But I feel like Aaron Rodgers is his own thing. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has had some anchors around his waist here for a while. That's just a whole different animal to me. Okay. Scott May said, can Breeland stay healthy alongside Fuller? That's going to be the question. When he was on, he played well last year. I think he's going to be all right. He hasn't had a long history of injuries. It's been little nagging things like most players in the league. So I don't think there's anything to necessarily be super worried about. Let's see. Steve Concepcion, sorry. Who is your favorite Chiefs CB of all time? James Hasty is mine. Well, I agree with you. I wasn't very big on Dale Carter, as a person. He could certainly play. I'm trying to think. Hasty was just, man, I love that guy. When he showed up, things changed. I liked Eric Warfield for a time, but he was an underperformer. Nobody else really stands out as, somebody elite that you could really look at. Certainly there were DBs like Cherry and Ross that you could point to, but not necessarily just corners. Let's see. Oh, we're at 47 minutes. Okay, I got 3 minutes and got to jump off and hang out with the wife before she travels tomorrow. Do you think Chicago is going to be a close game, knowing Nagy and everything? That's Adam Doherty. I think it'll be closer, but I don't know that their personnel can really hold up to the Chiefs' offense. So I don't think it's going to be super close. It might be a 10-point game, it might be a 7, but I don't think it's going to be closer than that. Alex Mitchell, do you think did anyone mark no one goes undefeated? Okay, gotcha. Any chance that Eric Berry resigns with us for a cheaper deal and it hasn't signed anywhere else? Corey Landy, I know it sounds like a good idea, but I don't think Eric's healthy enough to play. I know Eric wants to, and I know he's telling people that he can. The Cowboys had a chance to sign him initially, and they didn't do it. The Cowboys aren't exactly known for not taking risks. So I don't know if there's more football in Eric's future. I hope there is, but I just don't know. Sorry. Let's see. Yes. P. Schlielbier. I think I said that. Thank you. Trenton Ray Henney is the backup. Adam Daughtry. Who do you see making big plays this preseason? I'm going to have an eye on Cody Thompson and Pringle is what I'm going to be doing. And I'm going to keep an eye on Mark Fields in the secondary. Will Spags rotate Okafor and Saunders in that position? Scott Mesa. No. Okafor's going to be an outside DN. Saunders is going to play in at the 3 technique. You might see him go inside. He might come out at a 5, but he's probably going to have another end outside of him regardless. He's meant to be in there between the 5 and the 3 tech. He's good at attacking gaps, so I think that's going to be his thing. Let's see. I thought I saw a name, and I did. Mr. Charlie Rogers, how are you? The hard thing is the Chiefs need a number 1 corner rather than depth. There's one handful of guys out there that got the bill, and they'll all be expensive. You're absolutely right. And I don't want to even speculate on how expensive for some of the other guys. So, Michael, thank you. I did, Charlie. I talked about the tight ends before. I think it's Yelder and Lovett right now, and I think they're going to be okay if they don't have blocking. They're going to rely on the pass catching abilities. But I'm also saying that they could bring somebody else in. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility at all. So. I will be at training camp on the 12th and 13th, following the Monday, Tuesday, following the first preseason game. Jerome Woods was a safety mark, I think, if I remember correctly. Michael Simbadi, thoughts on the linebackers going in this year? Not sure anyone scares me. I think it's kind of an experiment to leave Hitch at will. I think in the end, especially in the nickel, he's going to come inside. I think you're going to see Lee get a chance there, which puts Dorian O'Daniel on the back burner. But I think eventually you're going to see a small nickel lineup where Lee and O'Daniel will be out there together. I think that's a lot of speed. If you have somebody that's down and you know they have to throw the ball a ton, I can see them running a small nickel with those two guys. Let's see. Base Mobile. Who's the next in line after Andy? Bieniemy. Will Mahomes have a repeat year, Scott Mesa? That's a good question. I think he can do well. I don't think he's going to eclipse his totals from last year. I don't think he's going to have to play from behind as much. I don't think he's going to have to score as much to win games. So I think Andy will kind of pull him back a little bit. I think he'll do good. I think he has another shot at an MVP for certain, but I don't think he's going to top last year. Nate Matthews, any word on whether Tim Grunhard said about the suspension on 8-10? I have no idea. I don't listen. I'm not in the market, so I didn't hear what Grunhard said. Should the Chiefs add another fullback? Mulligan. That's a good question. I'll just be glad that they keep the one they got. You're not missing anything. Oh, really, Charlie? Sorry, man. Vegas, they got other things on their mind than making good beer, I guess. All right. Last question, Trenton Ray. How much cap space do the Chiefs have? And do we have enough to get Pat Peterson? Yes, they can do enough to get Pat Peterson this year. I believe they're sitting at 23 as of 2 days ago, or 4 days ago when I last looked. They can definitely get that done if they want to and get Jones done. There are ways around all of it. I hope that they do. It would definitely help them. Okay, so I already went over what I was going to go over. I need to go see the wife, so thank you guys for hanging out. Everyone who contributed and threw some donations in there, thank you very much. I hope you got your questions asked. If I didn't, make sure you hit me next week. We will continue Mondays as usual. Hope you guys had fun. Hope this looks better. Let me know what you think of the lighting setup, as well as the new vlog style. I'm going to do a couple other things. I got a top 5 list for you this week. I got some other things, and I'm going to start just trying to get everything out before camp starts. So appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. I'll check you next time.